My name is Jessica Cebra, and I work at Stanford University in the libraries. I've been working with archived web content for about a year and a half. My position deals with descriptive metadata for digital content that's stored in our digital repository, and that includes archived websites. And I was kind of assigned to work with those materials and basically to kind of formalize our descriptive policy for those kinds of resources. One of our earliest captures was from 1996, but I honestly am not sure if that is the earliest year, and I'm also not sure if that's when the initiative to capture web content began, but there's definitely captures from like late 90s. I imagine they were trying to document the university history, and they've continued to do that, and I would think they were just aware of web content and the internet as being, a major mode of communication, and they wanted to document that. Pretty broad. There's various departments and curators capturing content. A lot of it is kind of government and politics based. We have local California government, as well as US government sites, and also international subject matter. There's a tendency to try to capture things that are more ephemeral and likely to disappear. So there's a lot of kind of election, kind of time-based events like that. But there's also a lot of cultural and social aspects that curators are trying to get, and definitely our university websites are being crawled regularly. And then we also kind of get one-off requests from various partners throughout the campus. They may just want a snapshot taken of a particular project that they've worked on that's web-based. They can find it through Archive It. It's also replayed in the Wayback Machine, but we've been trying as much as possible to migrate the work files and deposit them into our repository. So we kind of have a workflow there, and if it gets into the repository and it gets descriptive metadata, then we can have the catalog records accessible in our search discovery environment, SearchWorks. And we also have the Stanford Web Archive portal, which is our own playback environment. So you can access seeds and crawls that are in the digital repository, and they'll play back in, we call it SWAP, the Stanford Web Archiving portal. So we kind of have multiple ways people can access the content, because I'm not sure if the content will be removed from Archive It. I imagine it will just kind of be there as long as it can be preserved. So through SWAP, the portal, they can search by URL there, but otherwise it would be kind of a keyword or subject term search in our discovery catalog, or in Archive It in that search interface. For crawling, our curators mostly use Archive It. But as far as the administration of or management of the content in the repository and how it gets into SWAP, That's managed by our digital library systems and services team. And that includes a team of like infrastructure developers, but they have so many portfolios and so many projects going on, and web archives is just kind of this small slice of what they're able to work on sometimes. So, but there is technical support, and just trying to think of if there's anything else, but yeah, our web archive service manager, Nicholas Taylor, he does a lot of the kind of training, showing people how to configure crawls, how to QA, and he oversees those who are ingesting the content into the digital repository. And I think he's trying to train more people on how that workflow happens, because it's a little bit different and more complex than bringing other types of digital objects into the repository. 5 or 6 curators, or you can call them content owners, who are actively crawling and selecting sites to be crawled. But we have what we call a web archivist group. And I think that group, or at least those who are on the email list, comprises of maybe like 18 to 20 people. And then there's Nicholas, the web archive service manager, and he doesn't focus on that service full time. It's kind of like part of his responsibilities. And as I mentioned, there's a couple people on the development team who step in on technical work cycles when they're needed. And if they can get scheduled and prioritized, that's always an issue. So, and then there's myself, who kind of works with all of those who are capturing content and needing help understanding how to do the descriptions of that resource type.
So you're kind of a liaison for those different groups.
It tends to be project-based, like if someone is trying to create an online exhibit that involves these web archive seeds, and I'll kind of get assigned this project to work on with that curator. When I started about 1.5 years ago, right around that time, we were just beginning to add catalog records for individual website seeds into our SearchWorks catalog. And that was mostly due to a grant-based project that had a specific deadline. And so we had this group of websites. They were all described really well. So we thought, let's get this into the catalog. And since then, we've tried to steadily add more and more. So I think that's a pretty big step to make them discoverable to our research community. So the thing is, right now we have about 550 seeds cataloged, but there are many more stored in the repository that just haven't been assigned descriptive metadata yet. And then there's even more that's being selected and crawled in Archive.it and hasn't been migrated into the repository yet. And I really don't have a sense of that scale of content. I imagine we have some Archive.it limit, storage limit, but yeah, there's a lot. Archive.it, and we had a set of legacy data that we got from the California Digital Library web archiving service. And I think I'd mentioned we have maybe I didn't. We have a local crawler that I think has only really been used for kind of one-off requests, but I believe we're trying to move away from that and have everyone just use Archive.it for crawling. And other software, well, for storage, we have our locally built repository and the swap portal. I think those are the main, and the SearchWorks catalog too. I guess you can include that for discovery and access, because you kind of click through the captures and then that brings you to the portal page. For web archiving specifically, that's mostly Nicholas Taylor, the Web Archive Service Manager, and then a couple of the infrastructure developers will help with any kind of systems enhancements, or if there happens to be a bug that's identified or something. We do have some support for that. It's pretty complementary to kind of discipline-specific collection development. A lot of the curators involved with web archiving are already collecting subject matter in other forms, and so I think collecting websites is kind of complementary to that practice, but has a whole unique set of challenges. One thing I faced kind of getting into all this and learning about it, there's so many, it's so complex and there's so many issues and so many different facets of just understanding how websites behave, because on a daily basis, our interaction with the internet and websites it's so kind of easy and fluid and simple, and we deal with it all the time, but we don't necessarily think about like how it all works. And then when archiving it all comes into play, like all of those technical processes are surfaced and we realize how crazy it is. So I think kind of learning all of that takes time. Like I had to do a lot of reading. I read so much literature to see what all the challenges are from different perspectives, from the people capturing the content to the user end, the researcher. Kind of how much time everything takes. And as I work with curators now, like I'm really seeing how much time they spend configuring crawls and doing QA and then describing everything. I think, we're just now kind of figuring out how much time needs to be dedicated to this practice. And the good news is we are hiring a full-time web archivist, and that is going to transform this whole process for us, we're hoping. I'm just so impressed by this community. I am always finding out new things. And I'm excited by the challenges everyone is